Good morning, everybody. And here I am on the school run again. The final week of the year, the weirdest year ever. I think the girls have gone to school literally for just half of the school year. So, very strange year for them, especially for my youngest, because it's her first ever year of school. So, I don't think she's really got that rhythm yet. Anyway, how are you? What I wanted to talk about today is a few things. First of all, I wanted to talk about holding space. Holding space is, I think it's one of the greatest gifts that we can do for anybody. I think we can love people, we can be there for people, but if someone is going through a tough time, holding space is the most amazing thing you could ever receive from somebody else. And the thing about holding space is, to the human mind, it doesn't really exist. It's something that's invisible. But on a soul level, if you could measure it, if you could visually see from that satellite point of view what it does, you would be absolutely amazed. And that's why I wanted to just remind us that holding space is such a great thing. And the sending healing, which is a kind of requires more effort and I think more focus, but holding space is literally where we, for example, I do it with my mum when I go and see her. She is blissfully unaware of this whole spiritual journey, and even if you try and explain it to her, she's just not interested. So the reason I hold space for her is because I know that I can help her. My mum is blissfully unaware of the whole spiritual journey. She's fallen out with God because when her mother died, she needed someone to blame. And so basically she disconnected herself from that kind of spiritual or even the religious path. She's just not interested. So what I do is, when I go and stay with her at her house, I hold space for her. I send her healing too, but I hold space for her because I realise that she is very often in that fight or flight mode. She's very often stressed and living in that world of paranoia, which so many elderly people are right now. Not just because of COVID-19, she was doing it well before that. They get to a certain stage where their life doesn't lose meaning, but to them it loses direction. With my mum, it was a breakup with my dad. It was the death of her mother and her father. And so she basically just needs to she needs a big hug. That's what she needs. She needs one of Mary's big huggles. But this is so much more powerful than the hug on the physical level, because what you're doing is you're breathing with them. You sit by them. They might be watching television. They're not interested in kind of taking a healing. But you ask them at a higher level, are you okay that I send you healing, or are you okay that I hold space for you? And 9 times out of 10, actually probably 99 times out of 100, their higher self will say yes. And you don't have to be some super intuitive to get that. I would say if you get a very clear no and a block, then you react to that. But if you don't get that negative, then I think that's them accepting at the highest level. And then all you do is you breathe with them. You look at them, or if they're close to you, if they're watching the TV, you can just look at them. And I put my hands out in front of me. Some people might imagine a violet flame. For me, I'm just literally imagining a light and a heart around my mum, and I'm breathing up and down my spine, up and down my spine. And I'm holding space for her, and I'm just saying, I'm here for you, Mum. I'm here for you, Mum. And I'm listening. If you want to talk to me, I'm listening on a soul level too. And I'm holding space for you. I'm holding space for you. And what you can do is, now you know how to open sacred space. It's very, very simple with the hands in that prayer position. You can open sacred space around you and them, but just remember to close it. That's a really important thing to do. Yeah, so holding space, really amazing gift that we can give to people on the planet, our friends, our family, loved ones, who just clearly need some space, some time to be taken out of that space-time continuum and to be put into that sacred spot. And I think with my mum, I don't know officially, but I think that what I've done is I've allowed her to take a step back sometimes from that life where she's obsessed about all the things in her life which didn't quite go right, and because she's got so much time in her world, she then goes back over it and blames herself again and again and again. And basically what we're allowing her to do is just to step out of that space just for a little bit and get a little helping of her higher self, so that she's not always just blaming and beating herself up and wrapping herself up in her own energy. Now that's holding space. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is how we can really allow a healing to happen, whether it's our own healing or someone else. And of course we do all sorts of different healings. There's people who do Reiki, there's people who do the shamanic illuminations. There's so many types of healing now that, reconnection, I could list 1,000. But actually, the level of the healing is dictated by something else. Because I think a lot of people presume that when you go for a healing, it's the healer who's healing the person who needs to be healed. But actually, that's not the case. When you go for a healing, the person who's doing the most powerful work is the person who is being healed. Firstly, they are opening the door to the healing. And secondly, they're allowing the healer to access the highest part of the person who needs to be healed to then allow the healing to happen. So don't think for 1 second that the healer is the person who's doing the healing. And if any healer tells you that they're doing that, actually, it's not true. They are part of the healing, but they are merely the vessel who allows the healing to happen. And it is spirit and the person who's being healed who is actually doing the most work. But to be healed in a special way, in the maximum way possible, what needs to happen is the person who is being healed needs to completely open up and stop all barriers and all boundaries which they've put up around themselves. Now, it's a good start that the person who is being healed is allowed the healer to come to do the healing. That's a good start, because that's the first door that needs to be opened. But after that, it is the parts of their life that they are willing to let go to allow the shift and the change. And that is how you can have that thing called spontaneous remission, where you can be completely healed all in one moment if every barrier has been taken away and every door has been opened. And for someone to get to that point, that's quite a big point, which is why, spontaneous remissions, they're not rare. They actually happen probably on a daily basis, but the person has to be completely and utterly open. Think about that. What is it that you need to keep open? I mean, you've just got to literally say, I go into this healing and I'm willing for my life to completely be transformed. And the biggest fear people often have is change. They are not willing to completely change. And even if they have an illness or they have something that's holding them back, often this is something that they want to keep hold of because they've become familiar with it, and it's really strange. So you can go into a healing saying you want to be healed, but at the same time hold on to that other thing that's been holding you back, because for whatever reason it's become ingrained in your life, it's part of the rhythm, and you kind of like it. So if you ever go into a healing, and maybe some healings are going on within the sacred pause, between you guys, I've been doing a lot of healings to a lot of people, and I've had a couple of healings as well. And I think if you go into that healing, go into it completely open. Don't just invite in all of your spiritual guides. Invite in the part of you that has no fear of change, and embrace that new you that you're going to step into, because that is the moment where really special things happen. So that is how to be completely healed. And of course it doesn't happen every time, because it might be part of our DNA that some things can't be released and that we live with certain things that hold us back, but not always. And often on a soul level, we can grow even more than we're meant to grow in this lifetime by letting go of all those parts of us that feel like they need to be there, but actually we can live without them, and we can become free as the rain starts to come down. Oh wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Anyway, so that's holding space, and that's how to be healed. I hope I've helped you in some way, shape or form with that, and I wish you a beautiful day as the rain really comes down now, and I put my arms to the sky and embrace it. Thank you, rain. Thank you, Divine Mother. Thank you, Pachamama. Over and out. Namaste.